Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 378, recorded live on Sunday, April 19th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have several fun guests. We've got Sahba Jade from Damsel DDO.
Hello.
We've got Voodoo. I don't really know what to say what you're from. You're from Sarlona. Highlights are here on Sarlona.
Hey, everyone.
And we also have from the Sublime Permadeath Guild, and you can find him on DDOCaSplat with me, Chai.
Good afternoon.
Welcome, folks. This week's screenshot: members of Sedition storm an airship in the 218th DDO screenshot of the week. Although, as someone pointed out, is it really storming an airship if it's your airship? But they got a nice action-y kind of screenshot there. I like it. We like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons online nearly every plus hangouts, website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next Saturday. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or our website, DDOCast.com, with our calendar. I'm trying to set up another DDO debates. And if I can manage it, I'm going to get Jeff and the guy who does Order of Syncletica on, and one of the topics is going to be about stealth. So that should be a lively discussion if we can make that happen. But for this week, we're going to be talking about the game news and community news for this week, and we're going to be reviewing Update 25, which has been out for 2 weeks now, I think. We're going to try and keep this spoiler light. There will be some spoilers. We're going to try not to give everything away. Just kind of our impressions about it and how we felt things went and that. So we'll start with the big one, Update 25, Temple of Elemental Evil, kind of focusing on the dungeon. Let's just kind of go around the table. What did you guys think about the dungeon?
Awesome.
I liked it.
Gargantuan.
Yep.
If you're going into it your first time, make sure you have a few hours set aside for it.
It is very close to the first paper and pen module version of it as well. So if you have the maps for that, you can definitely enjoy how much they took from that.
It is remarkable how close the maps are. Almost perfect.
If there are rooms that I walked into that I knew what to do because I had played through the first module.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cheater.
I was like, oh, this room.
Nice. How does it compare mob-wise? I'm kind of sort of curious what the monsters and stuff are.
Almost exact. There were some cases, I mean, I don't know how spoiler light you want this, but there were some cases where they had to go with actual mobs versus certain mobs that were supposed to be disguised as other mobs, for instance.
Okay. Sahba, do you have anything you wanted to chime in here?
I thought it was awesome. It's a really big dungeon. As Voodoo says, take your time. It took us 3 hours to get through part 1. And I like that when you go into each room, you have no idea. Well, I didn't do the module, so I had no idea what to expect. And sometimes mobs spawn, sometimes they don't. It's a different amount each time. Traps are different each time. I liked it.
Yeah, the random encounter system's nice, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I'd say that the dungeon really felt dungeony. Like, we've got a lot of dungeons in DDO that are like sewers, and there's kind of they don't really feel like a dungeon. Like, you're not delving into a sunken castle or something to that effect, right? And I felt like this really captures the dungeon element to it. The random encounter system is a nice touch as well, so it keeps it fresh. I didn't find it too hard to get. Like, I haven't played the module either. I didn't find it particularly difficult to get through. Although the first time I did it, I was on Lomania, kind of capturing some video to overlay over the Ask the Devs episode we did a few weeks back because we had some video problems and I wanted to get some cleaner video of that. But I didn't find it hard to really navigate through this stuff. Let's say if I had any really complaints about the dungeon itself, I would say that when you're in the nodes trying to find, you have to find a little item. It's pretty small. The text over the head really helps, but it's kind of a small item. It could have been a little bigger and more obvious. I haven't found that I missed it at all, but I kind of, when it's not there, I kind of wait, is it here? Is it really not here? Kind of do a lot of double checking. I found myself doing that a lot. I will say though that the air temple is perhaps my new favorite hazing point, because I did because I had run it through before. Had some guild members. We were doing a guild run, and they're trying to figure out how to get the key that's there. Let me know when you want me to give you a hint. So they kind of tooled around trying to figure it out for a little while. And then they asked for the hint. And I said, okay, what you got to do is fly through the hole in the center of the room.
Oh, God.
It was entertaining. It took about 5 minutes before I told them. I finally gave up and told them that to come help me find the kind of kill.
Classic.
It was a good one, I thought. But I mean, that's what I tried to do the first time I was in there. Although, in my defense, the DM text wasn't there yet, so I didn't get the go find the dude hint that they give you in there. But let's talk about the random encounters, because we kind of already touched on that a little bit. How did you feel that played out and kind of added to the dungeon, or did you not like it? What are your kind of sense on that?
I like random encounters. I like not knowing exactly what I'm going to see when I go into a room, because a lot of other quests, you know what the mobs are going to be when you go into a room. And this one, sometimes I went in and there was a kind of mini boss fight, and sometimes there was a named, and sometimes there wasn't, and I liked it.
I think the random encounters are great. It gives you more of a sense of foreboding. Like, there was a bunch of mobs in this hallway last time we were here. Why is there nothing here? Is there going to be traps? So everybody creeps the hallway and figures out at the end that, well, that was just a hallway. There's nothing there. But then they open the door to a room that there was nothing in last time, and there's your red named, and having his team meeting with all his minions. And he wasn't there last time. The random traps are great as well, because it definitely adds value to the search skill and the spot skill, where a lot of dungeons in the past either were basically literally static, or they had points where the traps could be, where those are all static points, and sometimes they're and sometimes they're not. So you can just dump your spot and just search at those points, where this, I mean, you'd have to literally creep it and search it everywhere if you didn't have good spot skill.
The 10-foot pole.
It definitely adds to the old school D&D dungeon-y feel to it. I mean, it definitely has that old school module feel with all those random encounters. One thing that you definitely want to be mindful of is it can make it a little more challenging to go back for a shrine that you thought was clear. So don't run yourself out of mana and think, oh, I'll just run back to the shrine, because you're more than likely going to run into some mobs.
Yeah, it's not just random encounters, they respawn, too.
They're wandering encounters.
Lots of respawns.
And I think it's worth mentioning that I think it was Order of Eclectica managed to get through part 1 with a discrete bonus in a dungeon by killing something like 130 some odd monsters.
Oh, that's discreet.
And that was discreet. So there you go. The random encounter is definitely flavorful. I found, I don't know if this one in particular is random, but and it's kind of more, if it's a point, and I kind of took a different route. But getting to the first temple, there's a ballista that was there, and I wasn't quite expecting that. And I kind of turned the corner. So I got the DM text, but I got that the time before, and there was no ballista, and I didn't run into it. This time I ran into it, face first, and it hurt a lot.
You can use that against your friends, by the way. You need to stand behind it, so run ahead of your friends, and as they're coming down the hall, blast them in the face with that ballista.
All right, I see 2 people I'm not running with right now.
That would be a great sabotage run right there.
Who's the second?
You, because of the air room.
Oh.
You like to grief your party members.
Only my guildies.
The trap part that Chai mentioned, I like that they were random, but I think they could have been a little more. I mean, all I saw were pressure plates and spell words.
So more number or more variety?
More variety. You know, I'm thinking like a big axe coming from side to side in the ceiling, or big rolling ball like Indiana Jones. That would have been cool. In a temple.
Spike pits, but I don't think they were covered.
I don't think they're random either.
Yeah, it just had a ladder at the other end, and you can jump to it. But yeah, I think a couple of covered spike pits might have been cool. Kind of like that Giant Hold quest, for instance.
Or the Fallen Floors in Wizard King. Whoa.
Sounds like Velcro.
Or chopping nuts. So let's talk about the boss fights. What did you guys think of the 2 boss fights?
Well, we ran it the day it came out, so before the patch came out, we ran it on heroic, and we died at the end a couple times.
The first one or the second one?
The first part. We died a couple times, and then we finished it up, and we're like, that was fantastic. And then we found out it was epic damage they were doing to us, that it was doing to us. But I thought it was a really great fight at that time. I haven't been back to try it again after they patched it and made it less damage. The second boss fight, no, sorry, that was the second one. The first one, I thought it was pretty cool. Where I don't want to get into it, but I did like the room set up with the elementals.
The mechanic wasn't too hard to figure out either.
No.
So there was a mechanic, but it was, I was able to figure it out pretty quick. I don't know if it's similar to that, if there's a similar one to that in the module or not. But
do we want to talk about the wand, or is that too much of a spoiler?
That would be into the loot section.
No, I'm talking about the wand that can help you with the end fight.
You're talking about the club?
Oh, yeah, the club. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a club.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about that, or do we not want to skip that? Because that's a game changer for that fight.
I thought it was a nice. We can talk about it without getting too spoilery about it. I thought it was a nice addition to it. I didn't use it.
I didn't either.
That was
Suffice
because
to
the first time
say,
I didn't know what it did, and the second time I didn't have one. So
there's a certain club, and I think it's always there in the same spot, that will make that end fight of part 1 a lot easier. And if you find that club, you will immediately understand why.
Especially if you're soloing or short manning.
Yes, solo. you need to have that club.
Anyone else have impressions about the boss fights?
They were really cool. I really liked, as I mentioned earlier, we did a video day 1 when it first came up. None of us had done it, so we really wanted to capture that first look, that first experience, not knowing anything about the pen and paper module, not knowing anything about what to do. So we're figuring this all out. Didn't know what to do in the first end fight with all those elementals, and then against Zuktmoy. I mean, we all died. We didn't know what to do when she's doing her special move, and we kind of had to figure that out. And even by the end of that fight, we didn't all figure it out.
But you were ready to go in and do it again, and
oh heck yeah!
Yeah, it was a great fight.
It was an epic fight, and we were doing that epic elite that first night too. So it was just totally epic fight, and just a really sense of accomplishment. Really a sense of accomplishment when we finished it. We had to use our gibbers blades and a few cakes.
Yeah, we did it on Epic Elite Blind as well, and that end fight, the second one.
Oh, wait a minute, mister. I knew all the maps because I did the pen and paper module. Don't tell me you were blind.
The maps helping the end fight.
In most of the module, yes. Absolutely. You're right. But with that end boss, the way that plays out, it doesn't play out the same way it does in pen and paper. It's more like an MMO raid boss than any other raid boss in DDO. Because there's certain, when the boss does this, you have to do that. When the boss does the other thing, you have to do this other thing. Or, and then you can attack in certain intervals, and you have to retreat in certain intervals. And without getting too spoilery, I will say that, it is heavily metagameable, but, in the long run when you go in there absolutely blind. Like, what is this? What is this thing that just popped up in front of me? Why is this mob doing this now? And when your gear's broken, you're putting on secondary gear, still trying to figure it out. That to me was a blast. I would have been disappointed if we could have all just plowed through it on day one with no issue, or mana potioned our way through it, or whatever.
Yeah, definitely the second fight, the first time I did it on Epic Normal, she only got her main attack off once. We have mostly full party, so we took her down pretty quick. It was only an Epic Normal. We're bringing in geared tunes. It was just kind of what we had time for her to do was normal. We didn't try Epic Elite. And that still on Epic Normal, her special move one-shotted me pretty hardcore. I think it was like negative 2,500 or something like that. Like, ow.
It's pretty punitive.
It was pretty nasty. And when we did it on hard, we three-manned it, and it was a lot rougher. And we had to learn the mechanics of what was actually going on and figure out how to use the environment and survive. I think if I had one nitpicky thing about it was that her special move has the same graphic but a different color as one of Lady Vol's moves from Mark of Death. So I tried to use the same mechanic for that, and it didn't work. And it was a little... It was like, wait, but that's how that mechanic worked over there. It's the same graphic. Aren't you telling me to do the same? No, not same thing. So that probably actually made it a little harder to figure out what was going on because I knew how that other mechanic worked. So I was trying to apply it in a place that it didn't actually apply, even though the graphical information was very similar.
You probably just described the first couple of deaths in every single first run in that, because everybody knows that from the previous raid.
It's true, and that's definitely a valid thing. There's probably some people that haven't run Mark of Death that are running Temple of Elemental Evil. It is Temple of Elemental Evil is a little more accessible, right? Because there's no real flagging, so it's a little more open to the average player. It's probably not going to be as scary as going into Mark of Death and Epic level raid. Let's talk about. Let's do loot first. What do you guys think about the loot that's in the dungeon?
Most disappointing part of it.
You want to explain that?
It's just underwhelming. What an awesome module. The dungeon itself, so cool. But you look at this loot and it's just real sort of blasé, sort of. They have a crafting system, and when you compare it to Thunderforge, and I realize they don't want to overshadow Thunderforge, but with the availability and the ease of crafting Thunderforge now, and the fact that you don't have to do any raiding to get, your Thunderforge weapon up to tier 2, your armor fully upgraded, and there's so many of those ingredients available, I don't see a lot of value in most of the stuff in Temple of Elemental Evil.
See, I disagree, because I asked people I was playing with in the past couple weeks whether they even had Thunderforge weapons, and most of them said no. So this stuff will be pretty good for them. If in the epics. In the heroics, I think they're pretty good for a minimum level 7.
I want to emphasize something here because I just did a video about this. There are a lot of people that don't realize. They just assume, I'm probably going to have to run a bunch of these raids to ever get anything to craft. You can craft, like I said, up to tier 2 Thunderforge weapon, which is an awesome weapon with totally unbound ingredients, with the exception of the Commendations of Valor that you get from running any epic quest, and a fully upgraded set of armor without ever having, to get ingredients that are bound from the raid. You can get all this stuff in the auction house.
Right.
Well,
a lot of people running around still don't know that. People coming back, they just sort of avoid that system.
It is a valid point. I know it's something a lot of people have raised. I think, Sahba, you were saying something about... were you continuing on heroic, or were you done with that thought?
Well, no, I'm just saying I think for a minimum level 7, the heroic, getting the elements on each type of weapon, it's a pretty nice weapon. I don't want to go into what the weapon is because people don't. I don't want to spoil it. But
that's not a spoiler. That you can see that at the crafting device when you as soon as you walk in.
That's a good point. Yeah. So I think having fire vulnerability, cold, acid, electric when you're a minimum level 7, if you're a 2-weapon fighting, put it in your offhand, and that's pretty good.
I think those will be good weapons for people that absolutely don't raid and probably don't care about the Slayer Zone either. I know you can buy the ingredients on the auction house as well, but it'll be a good alternative. But if anybody actually, anybody that actually raids at all is probably going to skip over them because the raid's been out for a while now. And it would have probably been cool if each weapon had like a niche point in the game where it was best in slot. Like maybe if I get the fire, like a fire weapon, and it totally just kills cold mobs, or whatever the opposing element is. Like if I get an earth weapon, it totally kills the lightning mobs and stuff like that better than Thunderforged. But
I will say this though, that totally cool that they came out with. I think it's the game's first named collar. That was really cool. I haven't tried it yet. I don't know anybody that has it yet, so I'm a little skeptical as to whether or not it's actually dropping.
It has a flame graphic too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait to get it and to try it on my wolf. And the mushroom cap, the graphic, looks so cool.
It kind of looks
as well.
It looks a little less like I saw it. The first time I saw it, it was kind of running by someone, and I saw it, and I didn't quite register that it was a mushroom, and it looked kind of more like trying to say the hat
like
that you
straw
might
hat.
see like the straw, the wide brim straw hat that you might see in period films about like with workers in Asian cultures work in the fields kind of thing.
Exactly what I saw too.
It's a nice hat. I think that when I think of the loot here. I think there's a couple different ways you can look at it. It's definitely not as good as Thunderforge, with I think the kind of exception of spellcasting elemental weapons. I was a little disappointed there didn't really seem to be new abilities in the crafting stuff. I think you're definitely right to say that it's subpar. It's below where Thunderforge is. But if you don't have a Thunderforge, they can still be really good weapons. They do a lot of damage, just base damage, which is really good. And you can put a lot of stuff on them. I did notice someone in one of my channels posted a picture of one that was upgraded. There's a set bonus that if you have an armor and one of the weapons, then an upgraded weapon, you get something like plus 20 to melee, ranged, and universal spell power, which is pretty. That's a big boost right there. To a lot of stuff. So I thought that was nice. I think the level 7, the heroic versions of the weapons, I think it's about as low as. I don't think that weapons that low will give you an inherent bonus to damage. A lot of them have improved critical profiles, so that I think they're really good for twink gear. With the caveat that they're probably realistically going to fill in the gap between level 7 and getting to green steel if you have that. Which if you don't, then green steel is not as easy to craft as it used to be these days because people aren't running it as much. But I think they're really good for kind of twink TR folks. And then I think the last thing is graphically, they have really nice graphics, which I think is a really good step to take when you're talking about having Mirror of Glamorings in the game and allowing people to pick a graphic that if they want from a different weapon. So I think that was a really good thing. Otherwise, I myself, and I recognize that I have to balance this with the idea that I have a lot of really high-end gear. I think every one of my characters has a tier 2 Thunderforged weapon at least. It's not gear that I'm really highly seeking. With the possible exception of some of my caster, my sorcerer, and my wizard will probably go and try and get some elemental weapons, particularly my sorcerer, and probably an armor to get that set bonus. And this might be a little swayed from my initial reaction to the crafting system too was the mushrooms weren't dropping enough. but that was kind of from before the patch, and with the running on Epic Normal after the patch, and running on Epic Hard, I started getting more mushrooms. And I saw someone doing a really clever tactic. Was they were getting 4 people, taking a party of 4. One person was taking each element, and then they were trading the different mushrooms. And one of them came out with 48 mushrooms of one type. So that's also a really good strategy, kind of get around that.
For what it's worth, my comments were only about the epic gear. I haven't even looked at the heroic, so I actually have heard a few comments that that the heroic stuff it can be pretty decent.
Yeah, the Rogue Dagger has Assassinate +2 on it, which you needed to be level 20 to get previously. I mean, you don't even get Assassinate until level 12. Yet here you have a dagger that has +2 on it at level 7. So that's pretty decent.
One of the disappointing things about that set bonus, though, you're talking about, at least in terms of spellcasters, was that it does conflict with the Draconic Mindset bonus from Giant Hold, because you got to have the armor. So, you're trading that out. A lot of casters are using that Draconic Mind, and then also at face value, when you look at the caster versions, they have spell power, elemental spell power 156. So at first glance, you're like, oh, that's higher than Thunderforge, but one of the things that you need to take into consideration is that the weapon has a lower plus. It's a +7 weapon, so it has a lower implement bonus than the Thunderforge, which is +10 or 11.
Right.
Which is a fair point. Although my sense is at least for the spellcasting weapons, the critical because to get the spell critical on Thunderforge weapons, you have to get to tier 3, which is the tier that's really hard to get. So I think that's kind of where I lean a little bit more. I think that in terms of spellcasting, it's a little bit more in Temple of Elemental Evil's favor. The melee stuff, I didn't really find myself jumping for joy over it. I kind of tossed some of the weapons I found around to characters that might use them, looked at what they had, decided it wasn't really something that they'd be interested in. With the one exception, I did send a great crossbow to my rogue, who can use great crossbows now. So that was kind of one thing that I really pulled from that. I think the loot is definitely the part where a lot of people are kind of iffy on whether or not they really like it, and it's probably the more critical place where people are being. So
I'd love to use one of the caster sticks, because I do actually kind of like for my druid build, it actually has riposte on it, which is it gives, I think it's riposte 9, and it gives +6 to AC and saves, in addition to the guard. So that would work great for my playstyle, but at the same time, like I said, I'm comparing it to my Thunderforge, and the Thunderforge is better. But just sort of, I'd love to have that riposte ability going on, which is kind of cool. It's an interesting choice. I'm not sure if it makes the most sense for a caster stick, but if you're a dual wielding caster, if you're using 2 caster sticks, that it could be really nice to have that in one of your hands.
I think there's a nice balance there, because I think Thunderforge is better, but particularly tier 3. But I think it takes more work to get. So I think they did a pretty good job, I think, of balancing that out. Still, I don't know. It's always nice when something comes out and like, ooh, shiny. You want the new shiny, right? And there are some of that. Does anyone know what the spell power is on the heroic weapons?
54.
Sounds right.
With an implement of 9.
Which I think is a little more than you would normally find. So it's not too shabby. And I think that's kind of where I think the graphics and the heroic weapons are really where it kind of shines a little better than the epic versions. But all right, let's talk about the guest DM, because I think we need to spend a little bit of time there. The guest DM for Temple of Elemental Evil is Will Wheaton. What did you guys? What? Did I say it wrong?
No.
What did you guys think of his DM voice and contributions? I know Sahba's got thoughts on this because I listened to Damsel's DDO.
I liked it. I thought he did a really good job. I know some people thought he did a horrible job, but he didn't take me out of this story while I was listening to him DM. Even his little chats about his reminiscence of the module, and his PNP days didn't take me out. I thought he was better than a lot of the other DMs, so nice job.
I thought it was really cool to have it. I did not like the metagame stuff. He's talking about stuff outside of the module at points, and I don't know. Like, it's cool, but I didn't appreciate it in the dungeon. Obviously, and then the reason why I started laughing is just because Will Wheaton is Wesley Crusher. That's all. I'm sorry, Will, if you're listening. That's how I think of you, and I love you in there. But so we got Wesley Crusher narrating the module for us, and then that whole first, and we didn't know when we were doing it cold that first night. So the whole time that we're going through, we just kept saying Will Wheaton, from Family Guy.
Oh God, I still think of him as Gordy LaChance from Stand By Me.
Oh yeah, what a great movie.
Telling the story. But yeah, I liked the way that they did the Haunted Halls extended interview thing better, where you're just kind of listening to the narrator talk and you can choose between that. It is kind of an optional if you can find all of those things. I don't know if anybody has tried to do that. I think it would be
I haven't found them all yet.
Pretty long exploration process.
We got 5 on the second one, I think.
The DM narrating was decent.
Yeah.
I thought he did well there.
Yeah, I definitely. I don't really have a strong opinion about him one way or the other, and I have to admit I was really surprised that when the servers were down the whole day, that no one blamed it on Wesley Crusher, at least that I saw. I mean, it was a really easy pot shot to take, and at least in my Twitter feed, nobody took it. So I was a little surprised by that. But yeah, I thought he did a fine job doing the DM voice. I appreciated the commentary stuff. I did find that it kind of took me out of the game a little more than I would like, but at the same time, I found it interesting. So I'm not really sure where to go, what to do with that. That was kind of.
The one I remember the most is, how do you say Sahagin? Did you guys find that one?
I don't think I did. Or at
he
least
goes
I don't
into
remember
this explanation of the background of the people, and this is how you say the word, and nobody says it that way in DDO. And so for the next 5 minutes, the three of us were going around saying it his way, and it was hilarious.
Well, how do you say it?
Well, I don't remember how he said it, honestly, but if you find it, you're going to laugh when you hear it.
It's not Sahagin?
Not according to him, no.
All right.
Just a lot of that stuff is kind of debatable on how you pronounce it, and I kind of wonder if the people making the monster manuals, whoever were coming up with the names, really had an idea of how to pronounce that. Some of the names are kind of a little wonky, but
Zigzagital. Remember that one?
Right, you guys have anything else you wanted to throw out about Temple of El-Manil before we move on to other stuff? Alrighty then. Let's talk about crossbow changes, because that was another really big change in the game. What do you guys think about the crossbow changes?
I thought the crossbow changes were great. It's been a while where, since basic implementation, when they did the Epic Destinies, and like say you want to use pin, if your crossbow isn't loaded and you hit pin, it just reloaded your crossbow and didn't fire a shot. So this whole one-click, being able to reload and fire using one-click mechanism, that was sorely needed as far as being able to play with the way the abilities are coded correctly. And then the crossbows fire more quickly as well because of that, so that added DPS to something that didn't quite have as much or wasn't scaling as well in epics as a lot of the melee stuff does. So overall, I think it was good.
Sahba, do you
I
have
don't
any
use
opinions on
them,
it?
but my guildies are very happy about it.
I like it too. I still can't stand the sound of crossbow bolts going out of the crossbow, though.
Plink, plink.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I stopped playing in a mechanic for a while because the sound, I found it annoying. But
yeah, I haven't.
I re-rolled a character to take advantage of the new changes.
Yeah, I think definitely. And I haven't played with it too much, but my rogue I think is going to see some benefit out of it because for a long time his range option has always been either a thrower or a bow. So having kind of more, and with kind of the rogue enhancement changes, which we'll talk about, with him having more action points to kind of go around and getting a little bit farther into the mechanic tree and having a little more crossbowing options, I think it's a really helpful thing there. Yeah, I think just the usability is just so much nicer now that you can use click attacks much more reliably. And plus, I think it's great that the devs have said that people are getting high-performing builds with great crossbows more so than with even repeating crossbows. So I think that that gives a lot of love to the people that really like to have a little more options and want to have great crossbows be a little better. So let's talk about rogues. This is also a big change on the rogue pass. I think we'll just kind of lump it all together, at least to start with. What do you guys think about all the changes with the rogue enhancements and stuff like that?
I think so far so good. I think that it probably needs a little bit more love, but it was a little bit more subliminal than the last few class revamps, where basically they just turned DPS up to 11 and let the paladins and the barbarians wreak havoc. The thought was that if a paladin can tank 3 or 4 mobs, a rogue should be able to at least dance one-on-one with one mob and be able to survive, and Shiv goes a long way in taking the mob's attacks away while you get full-on sneak attack uptime. Crossbows played into that a lot by giving them further point-blank shot range, which equals further sneak attack damage range. Higher damage, a little bit better survivability, like you can have roughly the same amount of dodge that you can while still wearing medium armor that you could with wearing no armor in the past, so you get a little bit there, even though it wasn't a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, it probably needs a little bit more love before it gets accepted as much as the Paladin, Barbarian, and Bard revamps. But I think it's a little bit more subliminal than those where they just crank the damage up.
Sahba?
Well, honestly, I didn't think they needed a pass. My rogues were fine before. They're a little better now, but I don't want them to get the same kind of power that the Paladin, Bard, and Barbarian got. When I've tried playing those characters where you just go and you swing, and I just find them totally boring. So I want to have a little tactic. I like to stealth. I like to get my sneak attacks in, and so I want more tactics involved than just melee power.
That's where things like Shiv come into play, I think. Exploring the way that all works now.
Right.
Yeah, I've kind of always questioned whether or not how much a rogue should be able to survive toe-to-toe with heavier monsters, since they're not really, at least assassins aren't really designed to be frontline fighters. I mean, kind of thematically, they're supposed to stab things in the back and not take a lot of damage because that's what the rest of your party's for.
Sure.
So there's kind of a thematic there, although definitely in kind of DDO's environment, a little more survivability can go a long ways. So I liked, there was one ability that they added or changed where as you attacked, you reduced the damage of the monster, which kind of gives you a little bit more survivability in turn, although it also gives a nice party effect too, right? Because the whole party becomes a little bit more survivable, which I think I really like that aspect of it. I like that I had more action points to spend around, if nothing else. That was kind of more noticeable. I got a little bit more mechanic funness in my Assassin Rogue. So I definitely kind of like that. I don't really play a mechanic or an acrobat, but I will say that I've always kind of thought about maybe making a thrower build, and it's kind of one of the things that's in my back pocket for DDOCaSplat as a build. And I think the mechanic tree at least made me a lot more excited about doing that and more interested in doing that. So I think that's a really healthy thing that it kind of gives that. Let's talk about the trap changes, if we can. I don't think Voodoo or myself really use traps that much. Sahba or Chai, have you guys played around with the new traps at all?
I have. I put down traps are so much faster to put down, and I like it. They're much easier to use. I like the web trap, and I use it fairly frequently. I even used it. We did a shroud the other day, and I put them down, and they got caught in part 4. And I approve of the changes. They were good.
I've experimented a lot with traps in permadeath, and when I get the opportunity to group with people that were more patient, where it's not like run forward and swing DDO.
So not DDOCaSplat?
Kind of. It's more like, people will let you prep a doorway before you open it, for instance. Usually you can lay down 2 traps, and I like to lay down the Hypno and then the web versions, and then kind of back off a little bit. That is great in tandem with Assassinate. It is fantastic because you throw a web trap in the middle of the room, mobs look at you, they come rushing toward you, most of them get webbed. You do the old jump stealth right over them, and you can bump 2 of them off because they're now helpless. Not helpless in the sense where they'll take more damage, but I guess in tabletop terms you'd call it flat-footed, where they can be sneak attacked without having to worry about who's got what aggro. And it definitely makes for a more dynamic playstyle than run forward and hit the cleave button would, for instance, for people that like stealth and more subterfuge style of play.
I did notice that it impacted the snare traps in Lines of Supply, which made them easier and faster to set. I've not tried something like Blown to Bits where you're laying mines, but I'm assuming that didn't really change. But
I think that's more of a unique game mechanic and not like a rogue trap.
Probably. With standard reasoning. Alright, with that, let's some of this other stuff I want to make sure we kind of touch on, but I don't think they lend themselves as much of a discussion, but I think they're worth mentioning. So we'll just kind of maybe do a quick pass through around the table, some thoughts on it, and move on to the next one. So we'll start with new Monster Manual is out, which personally I haven't paid a whole lot of attention. I kind of stopped paying much attention to Monster Manual before the 3rd one came out, and I think I liked them. They're a nice little bonus. I kind of ignore them anyways, but I do like that when they announced this one, they kind of had a tease that there's going to be another one, which is a lot of fun. I like them. I want more. That's great. And a new reward, which I'm a little iffy about, but I think that the Monster Manual was at least a really good choice of monsters, particularly with the Temple of Elemental Evil. A lot of the monsters overlap into that, or have a good range in the game as well. So, anyone else have any thoughts about the Monster Manual?
Well, I'm like you. I don't pay much attention to it until I get a thing on my screen saying you've done this and getting this. You're going to get this reward. Every 6 months or so, I might go through and collect all my astral shards. That's about all I pay attention to.
Same boat. I do appreciate the bonuses that we get. Being able to see the monster hit points and stuff.
Yes.
Usually when I use it is right before I'm about to hit level 20 and I see that I have a couple 100,000 XP to go, because you can farm mobs and get XP if you go to a Slayer zone where that same type of mob exists. It's kind of like a Slayer zone without actually having to be in a zone. But if you notice that you're, say skeletons, for instance, you can go to the skeleton part of the orchard and farm that, and you're getting kind of, I don't want to say double Slayer XP, but XP from 2 different sources. That being said, the only real reward I've ever gotten was the Bat Creature Companion. And that's just because I looked at it one day and said, oh, if I kill a VOD Bat, I get a Bat Creature Companion. Sweet.
Do Slayer pots count for extra in terms of the monster manual count?
Pretty sure no, but I'm not sure. I haven't seen anything that indicates they do. I'm still waiting for the monster manual with dragons in it. That'll be fun.
That's a cool idea, actually. I love it.
Kill one of each.
There's a lot of hunters.
Yeah.
Every dragon's a unique dragon, so it could be a lot of fun. You might actually see people kill the spectrals and Fall of Truth for a change.
We just started doing that in my guild runs. It works pretty well.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a viable option. People don't do it generally just because it takes DPS away from the party, but it can clean things up if you don't really have a very good kiter available. So let's see other minor things. Range power is now available in Epic Destinies and Epic levels. Yay!
It was due.
Yeah, it was about time for that.
Let's see, I noticed that somebody kind of threw in here. A lot of the threat generation enhancements have additional threat. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on that.
I usually try to minimize threat, so no, I don't have any thoughts on that.
Well, but if other people are generating more threat, that's good for you, right?
Yes.
I think that's actually something I looked at that I think is a great adjustment in the game, particularly when you get into higher epic levels, because a lot of those threat generations were kind of holdovers from before epic levels and epic destinies. And particularly, it got a lot harder to maintain aggro for a while, unless you were really spec'd out for it or were really able to kind of control your party's DPS, because people started hitting a lot harder. So that was kind of a trick. Tool stacking to 1,000 and ammunition in stacks of 100 from chests.
This tool stacking is fantastic because I like to carry a lot of tools because some question need them. The ammunition, I know when in chests I'm getting 2 stacks of 50 and I try to put them together and they don't work.
I think that's for throwers. Throwers only stack up to 50.
It's ammunition. All the same. All right.
Special point here on the ammunition stacks of 100 that are dropping, and that includes regular Slayer arrows, which are used as Caneth crafting ingredients, which is really cool, making that ingredient a lot more available. Not the greater slaying arrows, but the regular slaying arrows.
Good point, good side effect. I like that the tools stacking to 1,000, the number suddenly seems like so unachievable. Like I would never really need 1,000 tools. But I like that it's set so high that I don't have to worry about it as well.
Yeah, nothing worse than running out of tools in a quest.
It does add a little bit of flavor and entertaining and an opportunity to rib somebody.
Oh yeah, I love shaming my guildies when they run out of thieves' tools.
Again, I'm not going out with you guys.
That just happened the other day in a permadeath quest.
Uh-oh.
I won't name any names, but yeah, Artificer ran out of tools, standing before a trap that we all had to get through. It was fantastic.
That is a good time.
Never going to hear the end of it.
It's an opportunity for some fun. A little flavor for the game. It's good for the soul. I guess in permadeath you can't go on. Actually, I'm not even sure. Do they sell tools in the store? Well, they sell ingredients.
You can't go in the store to buy them, though.
Right. Let's see. A couple other things. They adjusted the melee and range power to feats. I think it's less. I don't really have a strong opinion of it. I didn't know if anyone else did. And Cleric contract.
Weird that shield mastery and improved shield mastery they added melee power to it. Like, I don't take this feat to get melee power. Give me some more defensive power.
I think they took some away from 2-weapon fighting because of the way that scales more in epics.
Did it have melee power? I didn't think it did. I thought the other ones had melee power.
They were going to add similar totals, and then they decided that they needed to pull that back because with more attacks per minute or whatever, per time unit, it actually scales more in epics. it was going to end up being like similar to single weapon fighting, from the way the discussions went on the Mother forums.
Yeah, there's a lot of discussion about those feats and how much they should add, and they came back and evened them all out. So every play style, if you take the feats, you get 6 melee power, plus you get melee power from the weapon focus and specialization feat lines, which I think is good, because those feats aren't. And in my mind, those feats always kind of existed more to eat up fighter feat slots, because fighters have so many feats as it is. But I think having a little extra benefit.
Yeah, because Kenzai, in and of itself, fell a bit behind.
The last thing I wanted to point out was Cleric contracts for level 7 veterans, which I think is kind of a nice touch. Although I think it's beneficial. I kind of wondered why they didn't add that to iconic gear too, but I think Chai actually mentioned it when we were running Casplat, that it really lends itself to rolling up a veteran character and heading into Temple of Elemental Evil.
Right off the bat.
With that is so scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best. What do you guys give update 25? Go around the horn real quick.
7 or 8.
Yeah, I was going to say 8. Probably rogues need a little bit more love, and the loot could probably use like a little bit more love as well.
I was totally unprepared for this question, Patrick. Can I get some advance notice next time? I'm going to give it it's 7 or 8.
You'd like to contact his representation?
I do want to emphasize, though, that the dungeon itself, I'm giving like a 9.5. But it's the loot side for me that brings it down.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I'd probably go throw out 8, 8.5 myself. So, and I don't want to. I want to make it clear from my standpoint that I'm not really trying to harp on the loot. I recognize that I am not everyone, and for me, it doesn't really fit into what I have for gear, because I already have stuff that I think is better. There's plenty of players that's not true, and I think it's quality loot that's there for sure. So I want to make sure that that's a little more clear.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, quality loot, because it's going to definitely, some people are going to look at it and go, this is what I want, because they're not going to get the Thunder Forged.
And speaking of graphics, the Spinal Tap sword looks so cool. Oh my god.
It still doesn't do D11 damage.
Yes, it really needs to do D11.
Hello, fun fact. How do you roll a D11? It's a tricky one. Mull that one over. We'll talk about game news now, and there's not a whole lot of it, so we'll get through it pretty quick. They did announce, or Jerry kind of let people know, that they currently already have a name in process for the next Classic module, which I take more, and we kind of knew this, but I take that more from the standpoint of, hey, we're getting more Classic modules, which is fun. Because I think Haunted Halls and Temple of Elemental Evil are pretty darn good dungeons. For DDO, so. Do you guys have anything that you might like to see while we're here as a Classic dungeon adapted for DDO?
I think Ravenloft would be great. Ravenloft has that kind of feel that you can dump it on any realm campaign anyway. You could be playing Dragonlance and dump Ravenloft into it. You could be playing Forgotten Realms and dump it in there. Just because it's got that whole like, oh, it's really foggy, and now you're in, now you're in this mysterious land where everybody's afraid of this vampire who rules it. It's not all hack and slash. It's kind of a great kind of gothic horror style. I think they could do well with it. A lot of fact-finding, things of that nature.
I'm envisioning human mobs running around in goth garb and having that be cosmetic available items.
I'd really like to fight some dinosaurs on the Isle of Dread. when I thought about it some more, because somebody posed this on the forums, I would really love to see the Queen of the Demon Web Pits put in there with doing the Loth fight proper, going into the Great Fane of Loth and fighting all her guards and fighting her there, I think would be so cool, as in her spider form, not in a projection.
Okay. Sahba, do you have a mod or module that stands out for you?
Undermountain. I liked it.
Okay. I never played with modules when I played D&D, so I don't really have an answer. We always made our own stuff. I think there was one module that we played, or one of our DMs used modules and adapted them, but I couldn't even tell you the name from him. He specifically didn't tell us them because there was a certain individual, not me, in our pen and paper group that had a penchant for metagaming. So if you didn't tell him stuff, he couldn't go find it. Let's see. Poor Galanda. Galanda's been having some trouble this week. I don't know if it was a hardware issue or what exactly it is, but it's been up and down all week. They did some maintenance on it, I think, at the end of the day, Friday. So hopefully those on Galanda will find some solace and they'll get things under control. They did extend the fire bonus week on Galanda through today for just Galanda for those folks. And they also put out a blog post of the update 25 loot, so you can actually see the graphics as well as what the stuff does. It sounds like they're probably going to mostly keep doing that, with the caveat that they may choose not to release certain items they want people to actually find and have that sense of discovery. But that kind of sounds to be something that Jerry's looking to keep doing, and partly to help the wiki folks kind of process all the information and let people see the items and that kind of stuff. So
I really liked that they did that, but I will say if they waited a week after release because of the phenomenon that you just said, that it's nice to be able to go in and sort of discover the stuff on our own.
It was about a week, wasn't it? It didn't come out right away.
So it was perfect.
Yeah, I think that a week or two I think would certainly be appropriate. Kind of go in and see what is. I kind of look for the spoilers anyways myself, but I know a lot of people like to, not the quest spoilers, but I kind of look at the loot beforehand to kind of get an idea of who I might want to run. Cause like I gotta pick one of the characters I got, and I got like 14 of them, so you gotta figure out who you're gonna run and focus on with that. Yeah. Bugs this week. Apparently, 6 to 7 upgrade tomes are having some problems sticking around. They are investigating it. The current belief is that the tome is being applied but not displaying correctly on the character sheet, which would explain why attempting to use another one isn't working. If there are people out there that are experiencing the issue, let them know. File a bug report. They're trying to figure it out. So there's that. Bonus days, month of Elemental Evil, the Air Week. You get plus 30% guild renown, and the Festival of the Traveler is back without blessings. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really run it unless they give me a blessing.
I don't either.
Mm-mm.
I kind of wish I would almost wish that they would just give you fewer of the Traveler tokens, or even just replace them with new ones, so that you have a smaller number, but you could get not random loot gen out of it, or get something interesting. Maybe a random store item and make it more random, or something. I don't know, something other than random loot. I can find random loot questing and doing my normal routine. So that's the only thing I have against it. Just why would I do something when I'm going to get stuff that I'm going to get normally anyways? So store news for the week: 20% off of Shared Bank Storage, Character Bank Upgrade, Storage Bags, and the Shared Bank Platinum Vault. You can also get 3 free tokens of the Traveler with the code AIR17, AIR717. The Chronicle, 138th Chronicle, LSD's 37's Character Builder Lite version is now ready, 1.0. You can check that out. The Shady Rogues were raiding the Giant's Vault, so you can watch that. Events for the week Heroes of Hinfolk on Galanda hosting a trivia event at the Anvil Fire Inn on May 2nd. The event will be at both 11 a.m. and p.m. Eastern Time. The High Lords of Malkir, led by Voodoo. On Sarlona, we're doing an epic Chronoscope teaching raid yesterday.
That was last night, so that's past. But next week, this coming Saturday, is going to be Master Artificer and Lord of Blades. So if you're on Sarlona and you want to learn those raids, please join us.
Wish I could. I would actually roll up a character and flag it or something over there, but I'm working, unfortunately. But I gave him my tips already, so the stuff that most people don't really realize. So you should be able to learn some fun stuff in there.
I'm gonna do some videos for those too.
Those are fun. Other than the fact that Master Artificer is, I don't want to say ugly, but it's not a very interesting arena to fight in. I really like that raid, and Lord of the Blades is one of the best raid bosses in the game, and I really, as a sound guy, I really liked how a lot of his special attacks had a sound cue, which meant I was really good at tanking him because I could pick up on those really fast. But yeah, you guys, I know in the past it's been like through the spring you guys are doing teaching raids. Are you gonna keep doing that for a while?
Yeah, we're gonna go through most of the rest of the spring, most Saturdays, unless I'm working. And I did compile a collection. We did videos of our teaching raids this year on the forums in the guides and strategy section. I have like all of our teaching raids as a video. So if you're new to raids, you're trying to learn raids, go there. They're all there in one place for you. They're on my YouTube channel as well. Almost every raid, and the few that we're missing, like Lord of Blades, Master Artificer, I'm doing those this week, and Titan, I'm hoping to get up there too, and I think there might be one more that I'm missing. So
yeah, they're a good job.
Take advantage of it.
They're pretty informative and have a lot of good information.
And lots of comments from you now. I notice you've been watching them all. Thank you.
Yeah, I worked through them. I finally got some time to work through, watch them, and throw in a couple. Most of those comments too are like really high detail stuff that that a lot of people aren't gonna recognize or pick up, and stuff like that too. So
I try not to inundate people during the teaching raids, but that's definitely good supplemental information.
Indeed. Let's see. The guild for the week. The Chaotic Evil is a small Argonessan-based guild formed by a group of pen and paper friends and fans of all things D&D. So you want to check them out. The comment for the week. Would an airship pilot make a good race car driver? And let's start with Voodoo.
I can't remember what I wrote on the forums. Oh, yeah. The simple answer is no. The more complex answer is yes. And the more practical answer is perhaps. But we don't have time to get into that.
That's confusing as hell. Sahba? Sahba, would an airship pilot make a good race car driver?
Well, either way I go here, I lose, because if I say no, Voodoo's going to say I'm simple. If I say yes, he's going to say... So, I'm not going to answer this question.
I didn't mean to ensnare you like that.
Trapped the rogue.
Yes.
Jade, do you have an answer?
I'm going to say no.
I would say no, just from the standpoint that a good race car driver just needs to know how to turn left, and airship pilots are going to be looking for ways to go up and over and around. They're going to be thinking in 3 dimensions. Race car drivers are kind of thinking in 2 dimensions and mostly going in the same direction. So that's my answer. Fansite news. We got a shout out for DDOCast looking at building for past lives with Bonnie Bew last week. Players news was talking about Will Wheaton and more in their 28th episode. Axel was looking at Pale Master Tree and talked to Will Wheaton and Temple of Elemental Evil. Tactilicious and Craftalicious was looking at Temple of Elemental Evil as well, as was the Longshot. And Enrique wants to know who would work for a troglodyte. Someone without a nose, I'm guessing.
Speaking of Will Wheaton, so I think it's probably pretty clear that he plays DDO. So I want to group with you, Will. Come to Sarlona.
It'd be interesting to run into famous people playing DDO. I know of famous people that play like World of Warcraft, but I've never really heard of famous people playing DDO. I'm sure there are. I just haven't run into them.
We have to find a named warg named Chopper and have it chase him around.
There you go. Let's see. Minion Monday also got a shout out. And if you want to chat with Jerry, you can join us on every Wednesday starting at noon Eastern on DDO stream as well. Some other videos that are going this week. The Weekly Wednesday was doing Temple of Elemental Evil on Kyber. Spring Fling did the Shroud. I know they're getting close to being done. If that wasn't their last episode, I'm not really sure. I was going to ask and I forgot to. But they're about to wrap up if they haven't already. See, Damsels of DDO had their 13th episode this week. Highly entertaining as always. And then Your DDO had their first podcast episode. They're calling it the Dirty Kobold. They were looking at the loot from Update 25. Jerry was on there. And then I think there were 2 more guests as well, plus the host. And Full Moon Fury had an adventure pack guide. It's a quick snapshot of different adventure packs with kind of a short commentary, so I'll link that in the show notes as well. DDOcast news, DDOCaSplat 11, we survived Tangleroot. We had a couple of close calls. And there was a lot of amusing banter. And if you want to hear Leslie get reduced to a fit of giggles, apparently all you need to do is throw a really slow dwarf in front of the spider. She had a lot of fun with that. Lightning post for this week. Enrique wrote in regarding our last episode about reincarnation. And one of the things he wanted to point out was he kind of decides against going from level 20 all the way to 28. He likes to chain his heroic true reincarnations together, mostly because what he can do is kind of work with the bravery streaks a little better to keep his elite streak as he's going through heroic. I tend not to do that personally because it only takes 5 quests to get back up to elite, and low level, that's not very much difference in XP. That's my personal take on it, but it's certainly a very valid way to go. And then our survey question for the week, what was the moment you decided that DDO was a game worth staying for? And we'll start with Chai this time.
It usually has to do with the utility classes. Usually in a game that is like Holy Trinity, it's always the tank, the healer, and the DPS. But the utility classes, I think, really define a game. When I saw people actually disarming traps that would kill, when I saw people having to work together in order to overcome specific bosses like the Chanticleer boss, where we used to have to shield wall and magic missile them to death and stuff like that, and actually use real tactics with mob collision. When I stepped out of the way of an incoming arrow and it hit the guy behind me in the face, like those types of things with the interactiveness of the game, rather than just being like all, hack and slash and stuff. And the obvious answer, because it's based on Dungeons and Dragons and it's a system that I've already known and grew up with.
Sahba?
Well, some of the same things that Chai just said about moving while you're in combat and all that kind of stuff, but it was walking into the first dungeon with Myth and her husband, and that did it for me because it was so like pen and paper to me.
Voodoo?
I don't remember a moment, but it was definitely D&D it was the fact that it was D&D that brought me into the game, and about a month after it went, when it went free to play, I started playing, and about a month after that, I was playing it a lot, really enjoying the game, and I decided, I wanted to support the work that they're doing, so I went in VIP, and I've been VIP ever since.
Yeah, man, I got into it from a friend that interested me. I think really the character building and the freedom to really create and design characters and be really flexible and creative really probably got me into the game initially, but I also think I want to give a shout out to the community too here, because that stuff's all well and good, but really I think the thing that kept me in, like the character creation got me in, but the thing that has kept me in over the years is really the community and the people that I play with and that experience. So I gotta kind of pick a little little bit of both in that. With that, let's do some guest plugs here. So we'll start with Sahba Jade. Let folks know what about the Damsel DDO and where can they find that.
We're at damselsofddo.com, and we have a show this coming Tuesday at 11 o'clock Pacific. We're going to start with our GIMP characters. We all roll GIMPs, and we're going to see how that goes.
And GIMP stands for?
Get into multiplayer, and you roll to see what race you're going to be, and then you roll to see what your classes are going to be. You roll 3. You're going to be 3 classes altogether, so you roll to see what 3 classes you're going to be, and then you roll all the way up to 20 to know at each level what class you're going to take.
Should be a lot of fun and exciting.
Yep.
Voodoo, you want to plug some of your stuff?
Yeah, so you'll find me on YouTube. The name of the channel is Vooduspyce. If you just search Ginger Spice or even DDO Druid, you're going to find my videos. I'm up to over 150 videos now. We got raid guides, got crafting guides, quest tutorials, tons of information about caster druids. So check those out. And my videos are not just watch me and Viz run a quest to the end. They're narrated. I talk you through it. I'm actually going through the quest.
Also point out that I did link at least his raids playlist on the DDOcast YouTube page as well. So
awesome.
Really find it as well. Chai, do you want to plug Sublime or anything else you got going on?
Sure. We're Sublime Permadeath Guild. The website is nodeath.guildportal.com. We do have our rules up there for public viewing if you are considering playing Permadeath. Permadeath is actually a much larger community in DDO than it is given credit for. There are a number of Permadeath guilds. Sublime has been around since pretty much day one on the Linus server, so if you're considering looking into that type of play experience, come check us out.
And you can also watch some of the folks at Sublime playing with me in DDOCaSplat. That's the guild that I'm running with as well. So it's a guy that just kind of got into permadeath. It can be a lot of fun, different playstyle, good opportunity to try out different builds, and have a lot of fun doing it. So with that, I'll say thanks for listening to the show, and thanks for my guest here for being on the show. Hope that was a helpful discussion, and if you have thoughts about Update 25, feel free to leave them in the comments. You might find that we'll read them on the next show. Also, thanks to other contributors for DDOcast. It's a great group of folks. And thanks to Turbine and Wizards for making the game. And thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. You can hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show or just say hi, you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us on the latest cast updates. If you're going to follow one, follow Twitter. That's kind of the best one to follow there. So with that, even heavily armored characters can tumble with minimal point expenditure. A good little tip. So with that, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to check out Temple of Elemental Evil for Update 25.